have to be careful how I phrase this because I don't want it to come across like I'm encouraging fighters to take easy fights, especially if they have promoters or managers who can manipulate boxing politics so they can do so. I don't want it to come across like that. But Leigh Wood is potentially committing career suicide as far as I'm concerned. He really is. And if he loses, there's going to be a few people who give him credit and say, at least you took on the best and the toughest. There'll be a few, but not enough people to justify the decision of taking the fight against Mauricio Lara. This is a really tough fight. Really tough fight. Lara can really bang. And it's not just the power. It's the intensity in which he fights. But Leigh Wood is insisting that you don't get better unless you take tough fights. I'm not here to take no easy fights. He's a warrior. He's proving that. Like I said, I don't want this to come across like, yo, Beats is encouraging fighters not to take hard fights. But let's keep it real. If he gets knocked out spectacularly, which is, a distinct possibility, you'll just end up being a meme or a GIF or the laughing stock for the weekend. They're not going to say, oh, I can't wait to see him come back. He didn't have to take that fight. No, they're not going to say that. Euro bum, British bum who can't fight, typical Eddie Hearn fighter. That's what they're going to do. And they're entitled to do that. That's the cynical nature of the sport. And we have to come to terms with that, But enough doom and gloom. Let's celebrate the matchup. It's going to be a great night in Nottingham. And whereas Leigh had to go looking for Michael Conlan, who had some nice feet and fast hands, this is a little different strategically. I can't see Ben Davison having Leigh Wood just going out there and slugging with Lara from the first round. I can't see that. So he's going to have to brand and implant that strategy into Leigh Wood's mind of what they're going to do. Because let me tell you this. Ben might send Leigh out there to box under instruction behind a game plan. But unless Leigh is 100% focused, all that's going to go out the window when the Nottingham fans start roaring. Leigh is going to go in there and fight with Mauricio Lara. He's going to go fight with him. Because you can hear that. Like, he's got no reservations about taking the fight at all. He wants to knock Mauricio Lara out and make a statement. Imagine that. Back-to-back knockout wins over Conlan and Mauricio Lara. And I nearly forgot the Zucan fight. He wasn't favoured to win that. He knocked him out too to win the title. Just a while back, this guy was domestic, really domestic level, not even British title level. Wasn't even considered British title level. Now, he's still mandatory for Leo Santa Cruz's higher tier belt, which I don't know, what is he doing with that? Is he going to have this unification with Ray Vargas? Because I'm assuming it was Team Wood who pulled out of negotiation. They didn't want to take that 25%. And Eddie would have been doing Leigh a disservice by taking 25%. I don't want to be looking at man's pocket, as you guys say, but it's too dangerous a sport to do that. It's way too dangerous. You know what I mean? So if Leigh and Eddie go to revisit negotiating with Leo, will that circumstance change? You would hope so. You would hope so. I mean, why should Santa Cruz get such a big slice of the pot? And he hasn't defended his title since, when was it? 2018 or 2019? When was it? You guys remind me. A long time. He just left the belt abandoned. And now he's got knocked out by Tank. He's taken up interest in fighting at featherweight again. It's coming. It's just... And you can't help thinking that the WBA are just making a mockery out of the situation. You finally force Santa Cruz into a purse bid situation to defend his belt, to give him a 75% split of the pot. It's basically them trying to make themselves look good by, you see, we're forcing the champion to take the fight. All you people complaining, look, he has to take the fight. And then you create a situation where no promoter who even has an iota of care for his fighters is going to take a 25% slice of the pot in this dangerous sport. Give with one hand and take away with the other. But big up Leigh Wood. But, let's not talk him up too much for taking the fight. I'm going to imagine he's getting a nice purse for this. And he's prize fighting at the end of the day. And Leigh, a Nottingham boy, don't mind getting his hands dirty to get his money. Matchroom get a bad rap from haters who say their fighters don't take tough challenges. And it's just not true. I mean, you watch Joe Cordina taking on Ogawa and annihilating him in 2 rounds. This is a fight he was not favored to win. And now Joe has a mandatory, I'm not going to attempt the first name, But he's taking on Rakimov, who was in a draw with Jojo Diaz for one of the super featherweight belts. Diaz couldn't get the belt because he didn't make weight. But this guy is a really good fighter. He's a good fighter. And that's 2 tough fights on the bounce for Joe Cordina. And Joe will have to have his game face on and be ready for anything to defend them belts. He needs that same mentality that he took as the underdog against Ogawa, and he needs to take it into this fight to keep the belts. And I'm hoping he can do it. But this is a tough fight. Some saying maybe even tougher than the Ogawa fight. And Warrington, he's got this Mexican banger, Luis Alberto Lopez, who I know very well right now after seeing him beat up Isaac Lowe. I've been following him since. These are not easy fights. These are not easy fights. There's no guarantees Warrington comes out of this with his belts. In fact, I'm tilting towards an upset here if the fight happens. I'm assuming it does, unless Warrington wants to vacate the belt. These are not easy fights. Lopez, he can do a bit of everything. He can slug, punch, box. If Warrington and Wood emerge victorious out of 2 tough upcoming fights, I would urge Eddie to make the Warrington and Wood fight. I think a lot of us who are subscribed to the zone will want to see that. Now, whether the WBA make Wood give up the belt, who gives a shit? It won't be on the line anyway. Voluntaries, you've got no choice. When you give up the belt, then more than likely the noughts on your paycheck get reduced too. So Warrington more than likely will take the Lopez fight, as tough as it is. But after that, he can start picking what voluntaries he wants to take. Unifications or big money fights. Now, if Lara beats Lee Wood, will Warrington go for the 3rd fight? He didn't seem in no hurry to take a 3rd fight after the 2nd one ended. And will he take the Wood fight if Wood looks really good as well? I know Wood will be up for it. But Warrington's recovering from a broken jaw. He broke his jaw in the Martinez win, even though he looked excellent in that fight. He did get his jaw broken. Which surprised me that he sustained such an injury, because it looked like a one-sided beating. But when you're watching the screen, or even if you're watching from ringside, you never really know the extent of the damage the punches are doing. You really don't. And that was a career best performance from Warrington, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to put a stain on Warrington's character, but it's a tough sport. Like, the knockout against Lara was a bad knockout. And then jaw broken against Martinez. There's always a stage where fighters have to start looking at their mortality and that they're not invincible. And you have to ask, is Warrington coming to that stage of his career where he is vetting his opponents more? And even if he isn't, his old man will be, or Eddie will be, or someone in his team will be. I guarantee you that.
Let's face it, we're letting thousands and thousands of immigrants in daily. That's not even from here, born here. But yet we've got our own people dying on the streets, homeless, who can't get anything. They can't get no money, they can't get help. You know, what's going on? What's going on, Great Britain? It's all in the name, Great Britain. Come on. It's not so great, is it, when we're letting our fellow brothers and sisters die on the streets who've been born and bred here, but then we'll let 50,000 immigrants in from wherever they're from, crying poverty, and then they're going to blow us up. So, it is what it is.
Xenophobia. Dislike of or prejudice against people from other countries.
Did you really believe I would abandon my son when my son is facing one of my greatest adversaries?
Senior will be in the corner with Chris Eubank Jr. Chris was saying the other week that he hadn't spoken to his old man since they announced the fight, but he will be taking instruction from English, Eubank Sr., his dad, as opposed to Roy Jones. So I don't know if Roy's going to be carrying a spit bucket, God knows, or what Ronnie Davis will be doing. But was it ever in doubt? I guess not. Senior was never going to miss this occasion here. He would love to be instrumental, the instrumental architect in plotting Conor Benn's demise. Yes. And no doubt Nigel's going to be there. £10 rehydration clause. Each fighter could be fined up to £100,000 per pound if they exceed the 157-pound weight limit. It's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? 22 years of age, 11-0, 11 knockouts. Jared Anderson, 6'4", 78.5-inch reach. Hasn't beaten no ranked contenders yet. Bob Arum said Jared Anderson will fight a class of guys like Hrgovic, Zhilei Zhang, etc., etc. Early next year, 2023. Jared Anderson, he himself said he's more than willing to face the winner out of Luis Ortiz versus Andy Ruiz. See, everybody can be an expert in hindsight. Everybody can. With Wilder, we can say, perhaps they held him back for too long, picked up too many bad habits. With AJ, maybe they let him go too early, and perhaps needs the confidence that only more pro fights and more rounds can give you. Mike Tyson broke Floyd Patterson's record and won the belt at 20 years of age. George Foreman first won the title in his 20s, in the 70s, and won it back in the 90s at 44 years of age. 22 is young for a heavyweight, and there may be a temptation to hold him back a little longer. But that's where you can become susceptible to picking up bad habits and getting bored because you're not being tested to the level of your ability. Your opponents are not giving you the fear factor. Complacency, boredom, overlooking opponents. Mentioned it all already. Tonight, he takes on Midjan Rafkanin from Serbia. 24 wins, 16 knockouts, 2 losses. One of them losses was via stoppage against Ajit Kabayel, not the biggest puncher. His opponent started his career as more or less a cruiserweight and hasn't beat anyone of note. The boxing scene said he's a fringe contender, but he's not a fringe contender. He's not a fringe contender. That's them trying to block the situation a little. His last opponent was 4-2-0. The opponent before that was 22-33-0. The opponent before that was 4-9-2. The opponent before that was 8-10-0. Before that, 15-28-0. You know, that's 4 opponents on the bounce with losing records. And the opponent before that was Ajit Kabayel. Big difference from fighting this guy here, you would assume, unless he is better than what he's shown. It's a big difference fighting him and even a Luis Ortiz, no matter how old he is or how much his bones creak when he moves, or Andy Ruiz. Every time I've seen Jared Anderson, he's looked good, but there's been many prospects who have looked good. Unbeaten records, high knockout percentages, and then that one test against a real fringe contender, or maybe even a bona fide contender, they get unraveled. Michael Grant, Pele Reed, Mac Foster, Audley Harrison, David Price. But we'll see how Jared Anderson does tonight. He's got to win, first things first. And then we'll look at this situation on stepping him up next year. Who would you like to see him in with? Andy Ruiz, Luis Ortiz, Derek Chisora, maybe a F.A. Jagba as he retired. There's some good names out there. I assume PEDRAZA and COMMEY are the main event. Who wins? COMMEY. COMMEY wins. COMMEY wins. Extra firepower should compensate for any periods he's getting outboxed for. It's a good fight, though. It's a good fight. PEDRAZA could win it, actually, but I'm going to go for COMMEY. Paul BUTLER. He couldn't resist it. Another British fighter from the lower weights with the big kahunas. He takes on ESPN's number 2 pound-for-pound boxer, INOUYE. This will be for undisputed INOUYE WBA, WBC, IBF, and Butler holds the WBO belt. At bantamweight, December the 13th drops on a Tuesday. The fight will be streamed on ESPN Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning in the States. I guess that'll be afternoon for us over here in Blighty. Now, they're saying it's Mission Impossible, but nothing's impossible. INOUYE has 2 arms like Butler, 2 legs. And at the least, I'm hoping he can put up some resistance. Not going there and just get incinerated. I can't see a location yet. It's in Japan, but no location as such yet. A lot of people are making a big deal about the pound-for-pound rankings, and I think it's Devin Haney being left out of the pound-for-pound rankings. I don't see why people make a big deal about this, man. Like, it is what it is, man. They ain't got him in there. They ain't got him in there. I'd have him in there. I don't think that's any consolation to him. But they ain't got him in there. They ain't got him in there. The Ring magazine, they also don't have Devin in their top 10. And he's vacated the Ring magazine belt as a result. The Ring magazine can keep their belt. You won't see me with it before or after this fight. Devin said the youngest undisputed champ of the 4-belt era, and not even on the pound-for-pound list, is crazy. Especially when guys who don't even hold the Ring magazine belt currently made the list. Get the fuck out of here. I would question ESPN how Vasyl Lomachenko is in there at number 9, but there's no Devin Haney. When Devin Haney is undisputed in the same weight class that Lomachenko is currently campaigning in. I'm not sure about Shakur Stevenson and Bivol. You know, Bivol beat Canelo. Fair enough. But is Canelo at his most effective at 175? And one of the criterias of pound for pound is the entertainment factor as well. Like, you've got to have a bit of both. You need a resume and you need to be able to put on a show. Is Bivol top draw entertainment? I don't know. He's no more exciting than Devin. If you're going to say Devin is boring, Bivol's no more exciting than Devin. The ring, they've got Lomachenko, Bivol ahead of him, and I mean, look at Josh Taylor's last defense. You have to wonder with ESPN and Shakur Stevenson being in there, is there any top rank bias? ESPN obviously broadcasts top rank cards. Is there any bias there? Josh Taylor. Devin just needs to concentrate on putting on a clinic in the Kambosos rematch. That's what he needs to focus on.